It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We're looking back at the Detroit Red Wings 2024-2025 campaign that once again saw the Wings miss the playoffs for what is now a franchise record 9 seasons. We'll look at the roster and grade the players, coaches, and front office performances. We'll also discuss the offseason plans now that the Wings know they are picking number 13 overall in the draft. Will the Wings be big players at free agency, or will they try to pull off a trade? We'll discuss some possibilities and give our views next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team.
Welcome back to the Sports Peninsula podcast, Red Wings edition. We've broken out we're heavy on the football. We do a lot of football and do a lot of draft stuff. But we also, we are the Sports Peninsula podcast. We cover all things sports in the state of Michigan. They're all fair game for topics on our episodes. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at the people of the winged wheel, the Detroit Red Wings. Our time-honored, original 6 NHL team that has had now a pretty significant playoff drought that continues once again, where we do not qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs. A lot went on this year, and here to talk about that with me is our good friend and co-conspirator and founder of the Sports Peninsula podcast, Dave Drzezinski. Drew, how are we doing this evening?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, Coach?
Doing well. Got some Tiger baseball going on behind us. So some Illich Holdings sports money is being made tonight, and they are successful as we speak right now. Mr. Scooble's on the bump, and we're up 2-0, I believe, here midway through the 5th inning. But we're talking Red Wings hockey now from this point forward, and no better guy to do it with here than you, Drew. It was a busy year. Ultimately, not a happy year or ultimately not a successful year, but it was a very, very busy year. Started out under the guidance of one Derek Lalonde. And Drew, just kind of take us from there. What ultimately can you help us provide a synopsis of the Derek Lalonde era of the 2024-2025 season?
Yeah, Coach, it's kind of inexplicable because the year before, the Red Wings were in it right to the very end. They tied for the 8th spot with 91 points. They lost out to Washington on a tiebreaker. Hopes were high that they would certainly be competing for a playoff spot, and they ultimately did. But they took a very roundabout way of getting there. They had a horrible start, and especially the month of December, late November, they were awful between Thanksgiving and New Year's. They really struggled badly. They seemed to have no jump, no life. A change had to be made. It's not typical that Steve Yzerman would pull the trigger at midseason, but he did here. He brings in Todd McClellan, who certainly know him from his days as an assistant with Mike Babcock. He's been a coach for 16-plus years in the NHL. And what we do know about Todd McClellan is he gets his teams to improve and he gets them in the playoffs. So, that was a good thing. And right off the hop, they played very well. They really did. You could see the first game against Toronto, they kind of struggled a little bit. Then you saw in that third period, it's like, okay, maybe they're clicking. And then all of a sudden it started to turn around. They rattled off a 7-game win streak. They had another 7-game win streak, Coach. So if a team can win 7 games in a row on 2 different occasions in the last half of their season, March doesn't make any sense to me. And that's 2 years in a row they've had a really lousy March. So unfortunately, that's ultimately what their downfall was. They had key games against teams they were battling in their conference, and they could not win those games, and that was their downfall. They just started out in such a big hole they couldn't dig out of it.
And it does come across somewhat enigmatic, and because we didn't have critical areas of injury. We didn't have any of our top players not playing during this stretch of time. This was not like the Detroit Lions season, which was a 15-3 amazing season, but really hijacked by injuries. This was not the Detroit. And we see our other winter sports team, the Detroit Pistons, have significant injuries, and we overcame them, became the 6th best team in the Eastern Conference. And when it really all shakes down, we may be a top 5 team really in the Eastern Conference. And the Detroit Tigers, we're all sorts of banged up, and right now in so many areas. But we're the best team and tied with the Los Angeles Dodgers to have the best record in Major League Baseball. That was not the case for the Detroit Red Wings. We were full steam ahead, all systems go. And after the Four Nations tournament, what happened, Drew?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, Coach. A lot of things went wrong. First and foremost, our two representatives that went to the Four Nations, Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond, just really didn't. I don't know if that took a lot out of them. I hate to think that's true. I really do. Pro athletes under age 30, I'd really hate to think that's the case. But they struggled. Larkin struggled badly in the last quarter of the season. Raymond did a bit, and we'll dive into why we think that happened. But yeah, when those two guys weren't really clicking, Patrick Kane led the way with 28 points in the last 26 games, which is great. But unfortunately, that's not the guy you want to lean on to be your leading scorer per se, when he's really a power play specialist now, Coach. And
at this stage in his career, yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to look at, because I'm gonna be honest with you, we're grading each player, and I know the local publications, the Free Person and News, do this, and they're awful generous with their grades. I find it hard to believe that a team that doesn't make the playoffs has a lot of B and C plus players on their team. We don't grade on curves here, and I'm not being a jerk off about it, but I'm just saying it is what it is, and we're going to talk about that in more detail. But there's a lot of reasons why things went wrong, and that means there's a lot of ifs in my view.
We're not maintaining any press credentials around LCA or the practice facility.
No, we got the 10,000 foot view, and we're looking at the stats, and we look at the eye test. Yeah, so there it is.
This is the People's Review, folks, of the Sports Peninsula.
Exactly.
That is the state of Michigan, and I'm gonna cue things up and get things going here, Drew. But Drew, the cutting into and cooking of the steak here is on you, my friend. Okay, we have our forwards here, and leading the way, with our top guy, and we were just talking about him in somewhat of a critical fashion, is Lucas Raymond, and he was a big part of the kickstart of that early McClellan boost that we saw in those 7-game win streaks that you were referring to. He was a big piece of that. He was a very, very big piece of that. Talk about the grade, Drew, and then you take us right into why it faded off in your mind, and what you think is going to happen with Lucas Raymond.
Well, I gave Lucas Raymond a B+, Coach. He was their leading scorer. He had 80 points in 82 games, so nearly a point a game. And this is the second year in a row he's led the team in scoring. Now, what I saw after the Four Nations tournament is Lucas Raymond tends to be a pass-first guy. He needs to become a more shoot-first guy at times when it's needed. I'm not saying he's afraid to shoot. He'll shoot. But too often, way too often, we saw him defer to try and force a pass somewhere. And that's why I ask, is he unselfish to a fault? Because sometimes you got to shoot the puck. And take notes from number 88. He's probably just a couple stalls down. That guy knows what to do with the puck. And he passes a lot. He's one of the slickest passers in the league. But damn if he won't pull the trigger, and he will shoot. Lucas Raymond needs to do that. I think that's the difference between what we saw this year and a Lucas Raymond who maybe is willing to shoot first a little bit more. Lucas Raymond will be an A player next season, and quite frankly is one of the leaders on this team. Now, he's a very quiet guy, and I know leadership it's just because you're a leading scorer doesn't mean you're a captain, right? And that's in any sport. But
Absolutely.
You've got to lead you got to lead by example always. But you if you're not a rah guy, there's got to be accountability for your teammates, and you're being looked to, and he's going to have to be more into that role of a leader. So I think that's where it's at. Can he continue to be a point per game forward? Shoot, Coach. I expect him to be an 85, 90 point guy. Honestly, Lucas Raymond still has some upside to his game if he shoots the puck more often. And that's how I'm seeing it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he was, a high point man, and he did prove to be what you would categorize as a point per game player. Anybody at this day and age of the NHL with how things are, just the skill level of the skater is so so premium that it's the best defense that we've really ever seen. In many ways, it's so it's so much harder to be an elite scorer, to be an 80+ point scorer. Yeah. And if you're into that area, if you are one of those individuals, you're in an elite class. I mean, is there 25 80+ scores in the league anymore in a given year?
25 to 30, you're about right. That's about
okay. So you're one of the best 30 players. There's 30 teams. You're one of the best players, in the league for sure. Yeah. So we are talking about that type of player here. He is one of the better players in the league. What we need to see from Lucas Raymond is that to be a stronger case in March and April and in May, and ultimately, even if we can get into the month of June, that's where we need to see Lucas Raymond really excel, which would mean he would probably continue to develop, which he really by all rights should be. He's still young enough guy to be of a developmental, phase in his career still. So, I mean, I expect more. I do expect more. Does it mean necessarily more scoring? Maybe a little, but like not necessarily. I don't need to see him to be a 95 or 100 point scorer, although that would be great if he could persistently be a mid to upper 80 scorer. I think we've got a guy, and I think that would happen as if you said, just like you said, if he shot a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's the issue right there in a nutshell, Coach. But overall, yeah, I mean, lot to like. Lucas Raymond played very well, and he certainly was a heavy contributor to even having the Wings in a position to be a playoff contender. Lucas Raymond was, in my mind, the biggest reason why at forward. But then we go on, and we'll go on to our next player here, Alex DeBrincat. So the question is, can he reach 40 goals next season? Well, he's certainly capable, because I lost count of how many post he hit this season, Coach. I mean, this guy was snake bit at times. He was the only Red Wing to have 20 goals in 5-on-5 play this season. Now that's telling. This is a team that had the number 4 power play in the league, but also had the number 32 PK at 70%. That's awful. That is awful. The power play was at 27.8, I believe, 27.5. League average was 21, so the power play clicked. But again, that was a little one-sided. Alex DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond, as aforementioned, big parts of that power play 1 unit. So 39 goals he had last year. He found several posts. He's got to get some puck luck, Coach. He just does. But I like that he's willing to shoot. He's one of their, I would say he is their best sniper. You camp him out at the top of the circle on the power play. Look out, man! Alex DeBrincat can light it up, and I like that a lot. And he's pretty damn accurate with his shot too. He needs to continue to be a scoring threat every shift, and quite frankly, we saw a lot of that this past season. That's why he got a B grade. He's not afraid to shoot, and he's a specialist on the power play. To me, I think if we just keep getting this version of Alex DeBrincat, he's going to get more puck luck, and things will go better. Not the greatest. He's a decent back checker, but it's not like this. DeBrincat's not necessarily a 200-foot guy, like a specialist in that regard, but he certainly back checks. And I think a little more scoring from him, which will open up things for others like a Raymond, that'll help a lot. But that's where I see Alex DeBrincat this season.
Yeah, I mean, you and I got to see him as a junior player. I got to see him a couple times as a junior player. Mm-hmm. I saw him in Sarnia as well. We got to see him down in Plymouth, and before the move up to Flint, and you saw a guy that was kind of scrappy. It was almost like Taryn Fleury like, at that level, and he was 200 feet. He was a little menace, in the defensive end, and was abrasive and scrappy in front of the net, and had a great scorer's touch, and really could crash and do things and score. And that element of his game has translated to the NHL. I mean, he always has, but he's bounced around a lot. He's bounced around a lot because his scoring, the value, I think, only held so much value. That's where we need to see Alex DeBrincat really become more of an impactful scorer, not necessarily scoring way more goals. I mean, hey, he almost had he had 40 goals, but we need to see him make those goals be very substantive, that buries games and gets 2 points in our in our point column and that kind of thing. I'm an Alex DeBrincat fan, as I know you are as well.
Yeah,
and he's a local guy, and I really do hope his tenure becomes successful and he stays around even a little bit longer than what we've got left of him. But we do need to see him, just like Lucas Raymond, kind of add to our impact. Our next forward that we're talking about here is no other than the captain, Dylan Larkin. And honestly, Drew, I think you would agree. We could probably spend an entire episode on this player, and we really could.
Yeah.
And that's not to just get a pound of flesh, because we may have an opinion that errs to a side of what appears to be a saga. I don't know if that is or it isn't. It probably is not really that much of a saga. Knowing the two individuals that would potentially be involved, no, I don't think that's how it would go. But Dylan Larkin is another guy, very much like DeBrincat, a local player, and he grew up playing in our group. He's from the state of Michigan. He grew up playing in our minors programs through here. U.S. National Development guy, University of Michigan player, Detroit Red Wing. He's played his entire career here. He kind of has carried the torch of this modern era of Red Wing hockey as the all-star caliber player. He's the captain of the team. It has also been one of the least fruitful periods of time in regards to playoff contention and really ultimately team success, because we've not made the playoffs in a substantive way very much since he's been the captain of this team.
No.
So, Drew, take it away. What is your perspective on one Dylan Larkin?
Well, Coach, I gave him a B- for the season. And he had a good year. I mean, hell, his first half was very good. In the Four Nations tournament, Coach, he stood out favorably for Team USA. He played really well. He had a really clutch goal. And escapes me who they were playing, but I think it was ultimately the game winner on a 2-on-1, and he looked really good. And you felt good as a Wings fan knowing that Raymond did show out for Team Sweden and Larkin played very well for Team USA. You would hope some of that momentum would have carried over into the last quarter of the year for the playoff drive. It did not. And it was more noticeable with Dylan Larkin. His scoring dried up considerably. He ended up finishing, he certainly didn't lead the team in scoring. And that's not necessarily a prerequisite for a great player. But at the end of the day, he still was third on the team. He had 70 points. He was tied with DeBrincat. He had 30 goals and 40 assists. The collapse at the end of the year, coupled with his lack of productivity in the last quarter, and then you compound that with our last bullet point there, the postseason comments were not indicative of a veteran leader. Well, he didn't openly question it, but he made a comment, and I'm sure he was being sincere. I was very disappointed that we didn't add anyone at the deadline, and a lot of other players felt the same way. And when you heard Steve Yzerman's rebuttal to those comments about a week later, when he and McClellan had their end of season presser, he didn't per se call out Larkin, but certainly we knew he was talking about him. He's like, well, we pay players to be leaders and to lead, and Dylan Larkin's the captain. So to sit there in a press conference and bemoan the fact that you didn't add someone to get you over the hump, you had Nick Suzuki in Montreal, coach, their captain, who went to their GM before the deadline and asked and implored him, please don't trade anyone. We can get it done. Well, Montreal ended up playing Washington in the first round and, played them tough. Montreal was not supposed to leapfrog the Red Wings, and they did. And then when we were going into the Four Nations tournament, the Red Wings were firmly in a wild card spot. Montreal was not. The script flipped at the end of the season. So Yzerman was about as emotional as you're going to see him, quite frankly. at any conference, any press conference or interview, and he basically said, I'm not going to discuss what we talked about, but if Dylan wants to talk about it, he's more than welcome to. I don't think he's probably going to want to talk about what was said in that room, in that one-on-one. We weren't there. I don't know. But my question and your question certainly is, can he remain the captain of the group and can he handle the room? If you're the captain, I mean, I didn't hear this from anybody else. So in my mind, I mean, I'll be honest with you, as a fan, I'm kind of tired of seeing a whimpering puppy who just got smoked with a rolled up newspaper when something didn't go right. And it's like either that's got to go away. Even if you got to play off and be an actor in front of the cameras, man, that's got to go away. You see coaches all the time, right? And especially in football, coach, you see them, they're emotionless a lot. And people are like, well, we want to see fire and brimstone. Some guys can do that. Like, Dan Campbell's more demonstrative. McClellan's more demonstrative. Scotty Bowman, you didn't see that emotional. Yeah, I mean, it works for some people and some people it doesn't. But at the end of the day, firm, strong leadership. There's 20 ways from point A to point B. But bemoaning the fact that somebody was traded and bemoaning the fact that you didn't get anyone of substance added to the team to help you get over the hump, you could have helped yourself, Dylan, and maybe put some more pucks in the net in the last quarter of the year. That would have helped. Now, is that all on him? No, because we're going to talk about what kind of support this power play one unit and this top line got in the season, and it wasn't good. Because this is an order of grades here, coach, and we're at our third forward, and we're at a B-. You don't make the honor roll and not make the playoffs. It is what it is. So Dylan Larkin, is he willing to waive his no trade clause to the right team? And would Yzerman even consider that? Well, I don't know that, but bottom line is if Dylan Larkin's that unhappy with how things are going, then maybe he does need a change of scenery. He would have to sign off on it. You don't just give him away. Now, what would you get for Dylan Larkin? Well, you got to get something. I mean, let me put it this way. If you could get a first-round pick, but also a couple of forwards, and this is what they desperately, desperately need. They do not have this. They've got to be tough to play against, and they've got to be physical and gritty. They are not. I mean, coach, if I'm planning to play the Detroit Red Wings, my game plan is we're going to do what we want to do. We are going to rough up that guy, 71. We're going to give him face washes. We're going to cross-check him. We're going to do whatever we need to do to get him off his game. We're going to put our top checking line on that number one unit. And we'll try to stay out of the box. But you know what? If we get some penalties and they can't score on a power play, we win. If they do burn us on a power play, we'll still outwork them in the corners, and we're going to be as physical as hell against them in the third period, and they will wilt. And I mean, if I'm off base, tell me. But to me, that's the blueprint of how to beat the Red Wings. Just outwork them and rough them up. And I said, well, why would you trade Dylan Larkin, Drew? You're out of your damn mind. Well, maybe, but who else are you going to trade and get any kind of value back for him and make it make sense under the cap? Because Dylan Larkin's making about $8.5 million a year. But that's going to be a really favorable contract. If Dylan Larkin's a number 2 center on a good hockey team, he's going to be a value. He's going to be a core player, and he's not going to have the pressure of being the guy. And I personally think that's what he needs to be successful. And I think the Wings, if they could, to make everyone happy, is to get him in that kind of a situation and then get the Red Wings some more physicality and grit up front. And then you have a little bit of money to go out and sign a sniper or a scorer. You can do that. Easier said than done. And there's probably only a handful of teams he'd even be willing to go to, but I think it's something they do need to explore. And that's where I see it. If they keep him, which they likely will, he has to be better. He's got to toughen up emotionally. I'm not saying he's not a tougher guy physically. He takes abuse out there and he plays through injuries. He's a good hockey player. I'm not saying Dylan Larkin's not a good hockey player, but what he's being asked and paid to do in Detroit, I don't think he can do. So that's where I'm at with it, Coach. Your thoughts?
Well, like we said, we could go on to an episode of just Dylan Larkin. And for fairness of this entire episode being about the Detroit Red Wings, we should probably go in that direction. I think you said, things very, very, and placed things very, very well for what I also agree with and believe with in the camp of Dylan Larkin and his perceived representation of player frustration, of lack of movement at the trade deadline, and staying with the Yzer plan, which I don't really want to even say because that's kind of like a sort of been a fan creation too, that was all fun and games and now is kind of being used in other ways. Not going to say that. Steve Yzerman's plan is to be able to draft and develop this organization from an organization that had a barren field of fruit trees.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything because we've had to exhaust it to try to make playoffs for 25 years.
Yeah.
And on top, and in hockey, unless you're drafting in those top 5 picks, you're not likely to get a player too often that's going to just jump in and play. Like in the NHL, it takes time. So we have been vastly in that mode for a substantive period of time. We are all growing impatient.
Yeah,
I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And ultimately, hey, I mean, if we're talking 2 more years down the road and we've not made the playoffs, there's going to be a lot more changes than there's going to be a lot of changes. And you know what? But we may have to just nod our head.
Yeah.
Because, if that's the case, because but that's not a reality. I don't think we're going to be facing. I think we're going to be a playoff team next year. I really, really do. And I know, I mean, of course, whatever Red Wings slappy is going to say that, right? But and it's true. I mean, I that's fine. I mean, for sure. I think we make it with or without Dylan Larkin. I don't want him just to be. I don't need to see him out of here. I don't want to ever see him again. I agree 100% with what you said. I think he could yield a haul that could really be identity changing here, and we would ultimately replace him with a free agent likely, and we would have a new core with a vast majority of similar members. That I think would be able to do it. I think if he stays and we develop, we get elite at goaltender, which I think in the next 4 years we will be. Mm-hmm. We will have among some of the best goaltending in the NHL. Yeah. Our defense is going to be sublime eventually. Yeah. And it's going to have offensive firepower coming from it. Mm-hmm. And, the forwards, this position group, which we will move on and talk about another player, needs to get better. Are we talking about the last B- guy here?
No, one more. We got a couple more actually, Coach.
All right. Well, Pat Kane. And for many of us that, you see a lot, I know I see a lot of 88 Patrick Kane jerseys over at 1085 Ward Street, Marine City, in the hallways. That's a popular one among the Red Wing fans in our school. It should be. He's far and away the most accomplished player on our roster. And it's not even close. This is a phenomenal elite hockey player. That is going to likely finish his career as a member of the Detroit Red Wings. It's just very much just the vibe and the sentiment we've got, where there's a very much mutual interest, and it looks as if there's already an agreement in place. I think that's going to be the case here for as long as he probably, for the most part, wants to play. I know, Chris Chelios left here and played briefly in Atlanta, before it was all done. I think Pat Kane could be in a very similar situation where he is a Detroit Red Wing playing in the NHL for as long as he wants. This is a guy that you said that did since the Four Nations. He did not play in the Four Nations, but he was since the Four Nations. His scoring did kind of uptick, and ultimately was a player of presence that kept us going late into the playoff run. But Drew, give us a breakdown of Pat Kane.
Yeah, Coach, I gave him a B-. He was 4th on the team in scoring at 59 points, 21 goals. He played 72 games, which, not too bad considering, he did miss a little bit of time with an injury, and I think they held him out a little longer right before that Four Nations break to really give him a break. He's still coming off a hip surgery that really is kind of experimental still in the terms of pro athleticism. I mean, only a couple of guys have had it, and Patrick Kane he's lost a step. There's no doubt about that, but he's still he's an elite scorer. He's a cutthroat scorer and playmaker, and he's a power play. I mean, the power play was fourth in the league 2 years in a row. He's a big reason why, and they had him for the whole season last year. So you answered the question: does he want to be back in Detroit? All things are pointing to the answer is yes, and all things point to that's a mutual fit from Yzerman too. And if he can come back on that similar deal, a $4 million base with incentives, all day long, definitely. Now, the reason for the B- though, 5-on-5, again, only the Cat had 20 goals in 5-on-5 play. Patrick Kane only had 9 in 5-on-5. Not good enough. And this whole team struggled in 5-on-5. So he's as culpable as anyone. But he's one of the few on this team that's willing to shoot the puck. Every time Patrick Kane has the puck inside the opposition zone, you better be ready for a shot. And, oh, by the way, you better be ready for him to make you look silly with a pass, too. Maybe DeBrincat's the other guy I would worry about. Larkin and Raymond, they're looking to pass. Again, unselfishness is not a bad thing, but sometimes you can be unselfish to a fault. Kane has figured this out long ago. You do what you need to do, and you'll be a great playmaking scorer. He's an offensive threat when he has the puck, but he needs to back check more. Now, I'll tell you what, a lot of people didn't talk about this that much. McClellan benched him briefly in a game early on in his tenure, and he also played with him on the third and fourth lines at times in games. And I think he was sending a message, and it might have been a mutual thing, or maybe he was saying, I want you to help maybe develop some of these other guys, but I think he was saying, I'm not asking you to bang guys in the corner and rough guys up, but I am asking you to skate your ass off and get in the opposition zone and be slick he's got a slick stick. He can steal the puck. He's a pickpocket. He can do that. So we need to see more of the second half of Patrick Kane next year in the full season. And I like what I see. But yeah, they definitely need to bring him back. I would hope he's going to put some more pressure on his teammates in a positive way, but firmly. They need to step up because that guy knows how to win, and there's not many on that team that do. So that's how I see Kane in this season.
Yeah, I'm glad he wants to come back. I'm glad there's mutual interest in that. I'm not surprised. I think Steve Yzerman gets Patrick Kane, and I think Patrick Kane gets Steve Yzerman. Now, like you said, Patrick Kane needs to get Todd McClellan's wants and wishes and be able to carry those forward if he's going to be a de facto, leader. He should be a leader. He's the most accomplished and really the best player on this team. And he's the most, there's no one that's accomplished more, and it's not even close, than Patrick Kane has. Yeah. He's the Hall of Fame player on this team. Yep. So, we need to see the strongest version of that player possible. And that might not even just be some of the things that he does on the ice, as you said. Yeah. So, I am excited. Yeah, I mean, we need the Red Wings need better players that aren't going to be creating strobe effects with the house lights or lighting red lamps necessarily, or getting play stoppages with songs played after them. That they need guys that are going to make hockey plays that lead to those things. Yes. And, if they can do that, maybe that gets him some more opportunity, and he'll be a byproduct and a benefactor of that, as will we, because we'll finally get to where we want to go. Exactly. Our next guy that we're going to be talking about is yet another guy in the Bees, and I'm really a big fan of this guy. And this is the one, I think, Red Wing that draws maybe the least criticism, and it's really, there's a few of them, but that really – He really is part of this future, and he really showed a lot of great things coming in. He had 37 points in 77 games really early on. This is a guy that could easily double those totals and be towards a point per game player. If he gets to be elevated as a top 6 forward, and I think he's about ready to cement himself into that, Drew. And that's Marco Kasper. Talk to us about Marco.
Yeah, I gave him a B-. And quite frankly, he played well enough to earn a job out of camp. And a lot of fans were angry that he wasn't on the squad. I don't know exactly why he wasn't put on the roster, but I know there was a numbers game, and they certainly didn't have to move him up. they wanted to make sure they were going to give him top 6 forward minutes. Well, a couple of things shook out very early. He gets called up, and like to your point, he played in 77 games and had 37 points. Now he took a little bit to get acclimated to the pace and everything, even though he played in the preseason. But his second half was real strong. He's an effective second line center who can play the wing too. He handled everything very well, and he got better and better as the year progressed. Here's what I like. One of 2+ players on the team that played in more than 60 games. And that's a telling thing. And for a rookie to do that, and at times he played with Kane and DeBrincat a little bit, and those boys were -13 and -16 respectively. So Marco Kasper and he was a +1, but nonetheless, that's impressive. He needs to avoid a sophomore jinx and just keep improving. To your point, he has a high ceiling. This is Steve Yzerman, first-round draft pick, and a guy that wasn't on a lot of the draft pundits' radars, if you will, when he was drafted. They knew about him, but he was taken a little higher than some others. But at the end of the day, Marco Kasper, number 92, is a very good hockey player, and he's got a little bit of that grit. He's not a guy that's going to give you a face wash and pull a Brad Marchand on you, but he's a hard skater. He's gonna give you a bump or a little nudge after the play, and he's not going to take any, for lack of a better word, he's not going to take any shit either. So I like a lot of what Marco Kasper brings to the table. He's a restricted free agent. He was making about $800K last year. He could get a little bump up to like 1.2 million, depending on the situation. But Yzerman doesn't have to do that. But I think it would help. He certainly earned a raise, but he's not going to break the bank. Lot of upside here, Coach.
Yeah, I think he's a very viable part of the future, and Steve Yzerman's plan. This is the byproduct of the Steve Yzerman plan, is a young prospective forward that shows the ability to be a strong value top 6 scorer. I think easily you could see another 15 points tacked on to his game this year, based on who he could be playing with, and just knowing that he is going to be counted on as a top probably 2-line player, for this team. And I think 50+ points is a very reasonable expectation for a guy like Marco Kasper. Want to see that plus go up from 1 to the 10 range, and that again is going to have to be a lot with who he's playing with. He needs to have two-way guys that he can feed and also generate space from to shoot himself, as well as be successful on that defensive end too, and help circle pucks back to the into the attack zone. So exciting future for Marco Kasper, indeed. Exciting future indeed. Our next forward that we're going to be talking about is Andrew Copp, and I think you see a pretty sizable decline here in grade. We're now talking about slightly below average. And, Andrew Copp is a unique guy in the state of Michigan. We're talking about another local. He's an Ann Arbor product. He, Drew, is tied for the all-time most touchdowns thrown in a single high school football game in the state of Michigan. He threw for 8 touchdowns for Ann Arbor Skyline High School in a game. And he holds and co-holds that record with a guy by the name of Cooper Rush, who is the Dallas Cowboys backup quarterback, or at least one of them. And he did that for Lansing Catholic. So Andrew Copp is a heck of a high school football player. And he's not the first Red Wing to do that. Luke Glendenning was out of East Grand Rapids High School as well. But Andrew Copp was a great guy in the gridiron, and he's really had a successful hockey career. A great two-way player. He's a big part of the New York Rangers run a couple of years ago, leading into his free agency signing with the Detroit Red Wings. But it's not quite lived up to that this way here. We're talking about a 7-12 forward, aren't we, Drew?
Yeah. That Andrew Copp's making $5.25 million a year, I believe, is the number for the next 3 seasons. And no, we have not seen the offense. We've seen the PK. We've seen very responsible back checking and forechecking. We just didn't see we haven't seen the points, and we didn't really this past season. But he missed the last 26 due to an injury. He's not played up to the contract, as I said. His 23 points in 56 games was not bad. To be honest with you, certainly I view him, quite frankly, as what we had with Franz Nielsen back then. He was another guy that was signed to a 5-year, $5 million, $25 million annual contract, who was a 25 and 25 guy with the Islanders, comes to Detroit, cut that in half, but still the defensive side of his game was strong. And that's what we saw from Andrew Copp. He was a +4. Now, mind you, he only played in 56 games. But at the end of the day, that +4 was I believe second on the team overall in plus minus, next to one of the defensemen we'll talk about. But again, he didn't even play 60 games. So yeah, it wouldn't even really qualify per se. He's played well as a checking line center. He was missed after injury. You could see that they struggled to replace him. They didn't want, McClellan said, because they were getting a lot of success with Casper up on line 2. They talked about moving him around a little bit. He really didn't want to do that initially. But again, lack of offense is still an issue. We're looking for the same effort that we got last season, minus the injury next season. He's got to cement that third line, and whoever's on his wing, they've got to produce points. And that's what we're getting into. We're going to start talking about secondary scoring. And if we really want to answer your question from earlier as to why they didn't make the playoffs, but that's the crux of it right there. We're going to dig into that more very shortly.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, you could add 24 more games onto his regular season. Actually, you could add on 28 more games onto his regular season. 84 games, correct?
82.
Or 82. So
84 point.
If he would have played in all 82, that's 26 games he did not play in this year. And adding 26 games to his 23 point total, would he have gotten 12 more points? I think he would have probably gotten 12 more points.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a guy that would have been around 35 points, and who knows where that plus minus would have gone. Would it have, maybe gone up to +6, +7? Okay. At $5 million on this team, again, it's not quite good enough. We need it to be a little better. I mean, is he a 40-point player anymore? Well, I think that's certainly an expectation that wouldn't be unreasonable.
No,
like you had said, that grit and that defensive-minded forward centerman is needed. We need that kind of Chris Draper's mentality out there, but we need him to generate some points as well. I mean, we need more goal production when he's on the ice. That means he's not scoring it, maybe he's assisting to it.
Yeah, exactly. And to give folks an idea of what we're really, really talking about here, we're talking about guys like Kirk Maltby, Dallas Drake, Darren Helm, Luke Glendening, guys that were tough to play against in the corners. Some of them like to chirp a little bit. Some of them like to give you a little face wash once in a while. They weren't fighters per se, but they weren't going to back down and be soft either. They weren't going to be pushed around, and that's what they're lacking. And what do we talk about when we talk about the legends of Hockeytown? Yeah, we talk about the Cups, but the next thing we talk about usually is the Russian Five and the grind line. The grind line's talked about for a reason. It's not because it was cute. They were an absolute bitch to play against. And oh, by the way, they could put the puck in the net at about 40 points a year clip. But they were plus players, and you were not going to take advantage of them out there, offensively or physically. That's the issue.
Yeah, and we just need to see a little bit more of it. Let's talk about Elmer Soderblom. This is a guy that I know I have been really rooting for when they're up in Traverse City and trying to get back down here and making the team. And it's been difficult for him for a lot of reasons. Some that played out at times this year. We're talking about a long, rangy player, big-bodied guy that feels like he's a very center presence, net presence player that could really be a great, asset and be able to get shots off and there that, through his reach that just, many can't make. It's been a bit of a struggle. Talk Elmer Soderblom there, Drew.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I marvel at his skill. He got a C-. He was on pace to get 34 points in 82 games. I mean, he had 11 points in 26. It's got to improve. But he seems, when I watch him, and maybe you may agree with me, Coach, he seems to do everything right on the offensive side, but he either doesn't put the puck in the net or the pass he makes just doesn't quite get there. But the fact that he's able to get a shot off or make a pass the way he's able to do it, and sometimes in what looks like tight quarters, but he's 6'8" with that wingspan, he has some really great hands and size. He really makes life difficult for opposing teams to clear the zone. He's a good forechecker. When you watch him on the ice, and I'm speaking to the viewers now, watch him when he's on the forecheck pressuring the opposing team's defenseman. They struggle to clear the zone. Oftentimes he deflects their passes. Oftentimes he gets a steal. I love that about Soderblom's game. It's got to translate on the score sheet. He's still got a ton of potential. The back checking, that's what hurt him early on. I think that's why he was demoted and he didn't make the squad last year. This year, he gets the opportunity. He was skating harder on the back check. With that reach, again, he doesn't have to be physical. Quite frankly, at 6'8", 235, 240 pounds, you're not moving him anyways. So, and he does good work along the boards, Coach. He's a restricted free agent. He was another one making about $800K a year. He won't be a cap issue. But I think there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of growth here for Elmer Soderblom. I look for him to be a power play 2 unit, maybe eventually a power play 1 guy that has that net front role like you're talking about.
Yeah, he 34. To be a projected 34-point player at 82 games, that's got to be better. I mean, this is a guy that has to be, like you say, effective on a power play. Front guy and get a lot of those types of 5-on-5 goals, deflected shot type goals, and that has to improve. This has to be a 50-point guy. Yeah. He that's the expectation. That he's a 50-point player.
Yeah, definitely.
And and on top of that, yes, to be more effective in creating turnovers and stopping pucks in our own zone. To make errant passes or force dumps, or redirect passes or block shots or intercept passes. That he has to be more of a presence there as well. So I mean, I've rooted for him, but I now see why he's been in Grand Rapids for quite a bit of his career so far. Mm-hmm. If those days are over, we're talking about a 50-point guy that is more effective, in defensive zone too, and is a 2-way presence guy. That's where we got to see Elmer get to. Hopefully that's next year. On to our next player. We're talking about Jonathan Berggren. Another draft pick, another guy that, we're depending on. And it just seems like we've seen this kind of player play for the Red Wings for quite some time. He gives you that Yuri Hudler feel. Mm-hmm. He gives you that, Gustav Nyquist feel. These types of players that were, not bad players per se.
No.
But not substantive players either. Not guys that were going to lead us to where we're going to go. So are we talking about a true core member here? He is a true cast member to the core. I think this is a role player for the Red Wings at the Red Wing level if he's ever going to be anything. We're talking about a D+ here, though, Drew. Talk to us about Berggren.
Yeah, you summed it up. I mean, there were you see sometimes flashes of what Nyquist and folks like that did well. Yuri Hudler offensively, those guys could put up points. There were, Hudler and even like a Tatar had like 60-point seasons in Detroit. They weren't physical at all. They didn't create their own scoring chances per se, and they certainly weren't physical players. But there was a niche to their game. Hudler was a very good passer. He was good on the power play. at times Berggren shows that he's a more aggressive skater and he's better on the back check. Can he be more of what he showed in 2024-25 this coming season, 25-26? Well, he doesn't excel in any area. He's a decent hockey player. He can skate pretty well. He's a pretty good shot, pretty good passer. He's pretty good, but he doesn't have a niche. And if you're only going to produce 24 points in 75 games, well, I'd like to see you better on the PK. This team had a 70% power penalty kill. There's going to be a lot of Ds on this forward unit, and it is what it is. I'm not grading on a curve. He had a -13 this season and only produced 24 points, playing predominantly on the third line, at times on the fourth line. Jonathan Berggren had an opportunity to show that he deserved to be on that team, and he proved he deserved to make the team, but he didn't really show that he has a spot reserved for him next season. He's a restricted free agent. He will be back, I'm sure, at probably around $900K to $1 million, and he's going to have a chance to make the team. But I think next year's make or break for him. He has to be better, and he has to find a role where he's really effective. And that could be a PK guy. That could be a power play 2 guy. He's got that ability. Can he provide that solid secondary scoring? Right now, the answer is no. But we see potential still. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I think that's where it needs to be. I mean, I think he gets a 1 year, maybe 2 year deal. And, honestly, it's either going to have happened or he'll be doing it somewhere else, or maybe in a different league even, because 24 points in 75 games and a -13 is that's not something that you're going to be. It should be part of any long-term plans.
No,
that's not something that should that line right there should not be part of any long-term plans.
No, I
so
agree.
Need to see number 48 improve his game. Our next forward that we're going to talk about is another guy that just did not bring the Detroit what we expected him to when he was acquired. And this is another guy that's one of the U of M Red Wings, right? I mean, another guy that's a University of Michigan product, among so many of them. JT Compher, Drew. Talk JT Compher and maybe what he hasn't done.
Well, I'll tell you what, he certainly didn't score enough last year, and JT Compher needs to be one of the linchpins for the secondary scoring lines. And his fall back from last year's performance, it illustrates exactly why this team didn't make the playoffs and why they were 5 points just improved from last season. And that 5 points is deceiving too, because to be honest with you, the last 3 games of the season they were playing teams that were already in the playoffs and were starting to rest guys. I mean, to be honest with you, they got some extra points there and hopefully a little boost in confidence going into the off season. But this team took a step backwards, and you look no further than JT Compher. He's got to find a niche role on this club. He's got to be the number 2 scoring center, or he needs to be the number 1 PK guy out there. And he can do all those things. He just struggled everywhere. He plays in all scenarios. He didn't excel anywhere. And 32 points is absolutely anemic when you're making $5.75 million a year. JT Compher is a guy who should probably be flirting with 55, 60 points, not 32. He cannot be a minus player. -7, unacceptable. He wasn't being asked to play against the top scoring lines of the opposition, nor was he seeing the top checking lines of the opposition. JT Compher needed to do a lot more, and he did not. And he really seemed to lose confidence in his offensive game, especially in the last quarter. Remember that Memphis net he missed? And it escapes me who they were playing. It was a later in the season game, but it highlighted exactly the issues with the Red Wings, where they were able to play for 54 minutes, and then the last 6 were usually an adventure. And it kind of just accentuated what happened all year. He's got to figure out the offense. He'll be playing with quality wingers. I mean, it would be great to have him up there, on that second line again, and have JT Compher, flirting with 60 points. Like I said, that would help things tremendously. But man, you're not scoring and you're not helping on the PK, and you're making that kind of money. I'm sorry, that's I may have been generous with that, Coach, but he wasn't horrible. Okay, I mean, I like JT Compher. He had a really bad season though. It is what it is.
Real bad. I put a little bit more on his shoulders. He was a reason why we're not better.
Yep.
He was supposed to take us in a different direction. We went the other way with him. Yeah. And you outlined it. $5.75 million, and he has 32 points. Net -7, plus minus player. This is a problem. And at this point, we need to salvage JT Compher, because at that price point, no one's going to want those statistics. No one's going to want to it. So he's a swing and a miss right now. He's a swing and a miss. And that's saying something to JT Compher. And yeah, I guess for Steve Yzerman too, which really sucks. But this one looks like a bad signing, which is more on JT Compher's shoulders, unless we're talking about another guy that somehow was hurt when we signed him. And there was some sort of undisclosed injury that he battled through. And, we don't know that. This guy's play needs to improve right away, or things are just not going to get better anytime soon. It has to. I
will say this before we move to the next guy. I do have confidence that JT Compher will be better next year by probably 15 points. And I believe, and like you said, we both agree, we think the Red Wings will be in the playoffs this coming season. And he will be as much as he was a reason why they missed this year, I think he'll be a catalyst at secondary scoring. That's what they're going to need. But I think there's
has to happen.
Yeah,
that has to happen, or it's not going to happen.
Exactly. Great point.
Well, our local guy here, and this is a player that's near and dear. I worked with this guy's parents at St. Clair High School.
Yep.
Steve and Nancy Motts, the proud parents of one Tyler Mott, who's a member of the, I want to say it's the 2011 St. Clair State Championship baseball team. He was a member of that baseball team along with his brother CJ, along with Jacob Cronenworth, the starting second baseman of the San Diego Padres, among other players that were involved in pro baseball or major college baseball. It's a pretty unique period of time for good old St. Clair, Michigan. But Tyler Mott is one of our thumb area residents to the rivals to the north, St. Clair.
Yep.
A journeyman player, third-round draft pick, originally from the Chicago Blackhawks, another guy that played at the University of Michigan and the National Development Program. He is a secondary player. He's definitely a 7-12 forward. I felt a little more, and maybe I'm a little, I might not be the right guy, because maybe I have some bias, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I am a fan of this family, and I'm a fan. This is a little closer to home for me. Not that I'm Uncle Andy to Tyler Mott. That's certainly not the case. I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. But I do feel for this kid, and he's endured some things too that not every fan and player or fan of hockey or fan of the Red Wings knows. That some of his struggles and battles, and to overcome them, and be a guy from a little place like St. Clair, Michigan, and had a lengthy NHL career that Tyler Mott has had. However, it needs to get better. Drew, take it away.
Yeah, and I gave him a D-, and here's the reason. We didn't expect him to score. That's not Tyler Mott's game. He played, but he only was able to play in 55 games. Now, a lot of that was due to injury. Some of that was due to rotational healthy scratches. But he's a -11. If you don't score, you got to present the opposition from scoring, and or be just very difficult to play against. Now, he's a very good skater, and he's tough in the corners. He's not super physical, and he's not an agitator. So, that's okay as long as you're able to make plays in the corners, and he is able to do that. But again, former Wolverine, St. Clair native, and that's awesome. And I do appreciate that. I like Tyler. I was excited when they signed him, and I hope he could be back in this current role. He's an unrestricted free agent, but I'd like to see him come back. But he's got to be a penalty kill specialist. He's got to play with high urgency. I want to see a little more jump, but that PK unit, to have a team PK unit of 70%, everyone involved in that's culpable, and Tyler Mott's one of them. And all of these guys, not all of them, but I think we saw a lot of what I would almost call the worst of them. And yet they were 5 points out of a playoff spot. There's so much room to get better and quickly. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit is what I'm trying to say, Coach. So I think a lot of this could turn around. But I'd like to see Tyler Mott back. No one gets a good grade on the forward units, really. Even the guys like the Raymonds and the Larkins and the Canes, and there were no A's. And you can't justify it, and that's where it's at. But a lot of improvement needs to happen up front. They need to find a little more. They don't need to find more scoring. The guys on the team currently need to step up. They need to find more toughness and grit outside of the room, though. I think that's the issue up front.
Yeah, and hey, I wish great success for Tyler Mott, but I also wish great success for the Detroit Red Wings. And if that's not together, that's fine. Tyler, can come back. Yeah, I think this time around he would be healthy. In the Sands, there would be an issue during training camp or in the preseason if he'd get hurt, what that could look like. That being said, he's a journeyman. He seems to be playing for a lot of different teams. He has skills. However, they ultimately are valued for, within the plans for so long before he moves on. At what point will it be his last before he becomes more of an AHL player, or a two-way player from the standpoint of a up and down type thing, where he may then transition himself into being a coach? I don't know if Tyler Mott's at that phase of his career yet or not. That being said, I think he's got some tread on the tire to be an NHL player. Would love to see that here in Detroit. Not sure it will. I would understand why it wouldn't, but also could see where it could fit and him be part of a team that does make the playoffs, and we're thinking ultimate success. So best to Tyler Mott. That's one thing for sure. But let's move on to a guy here that I definitely, I could go sub 60% with this player. For what was expected of this individual, he is certainly somebody that was not one of those people that was paid to lead or was one of those people that was paid to lead and bring us and move us forward. And he is very much a reason why, in my opinion, we aren't as good as we should be, or we were 2 years ago. Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yeah, Coach. JT Compher was player 1A. This is player 1B. Compher didn't give them a lot. Like I said, 70% PK. That's an indictment on every player, every forward on this roster, every player on this roster, quite frankly, except the goaltending in some cases. But what happened to the offense? And here's the thing, no offense to Ken and Mick, I get it, especially with the Illiches. The announced teams do not really say anything negative. They don't even really call out glaring errors. It took a nationally televised game and one of Yzerman's best friends, Darren Pang, to call out Tarasenko on just a horrible giveaway and BS effort on a back check, and end up, I believe it was against the Bruins, and they end up giving up a goal. He should have been exactly what they needed on the second line. They lost David Perron to free agency, but they were okay with that. They wanted to get a little younger guy who had a little more scoring touch. Perfect. Vladimir Tarasenko, he played with Kane in that stretch with the Rangers when they made those deadline moves. They played well together. It just never materialized here so far. And he's he's back next year. He needs to be a key secondary scorer. He's got to be the Brinket on power play unit 2. He's got to be at the top of the circle. He's got to be making it happen. He's getting $4.25 million next season, and he's a player who needs to score a little more than 31 goals and get in it in 33 points. On top of that, it's like you said, it's extremely frustrating when you're expecting a guy to flirt with 30 goals. I mean, let's face it, right? And he just never sniffed it. It just never transferred. Minus 13 too, Coach. That's unacceptable. I probably should have. I couldn't fail the guy because he did contribute. So he played in most of the games this season. But I mean, I'm sorry if you're Vladimir Tarasenko. I think he's a pro. I think he understands that. I just wonder if there's a bigger problem. I don't know. I'm not in the room.
Well, he's going to be here for one more year. That's it. He will not be re-signed. He's not going to come back after that. His price point will be of something that's just not worth even entertaining. He for his sake needs to make it a substantive year, or he's going to be looking at a two-way contract. Because his decline to this past season, it just can't be. And again, swing and a miss. JT Compher, swing and a miss. Vladimir Tarasenko. Were these two individuals supposed to be much, much better than what we were? They're advertised as where they were, and the average is what they did statistically. We got nothing from out of these two gentlemen. This is the second one. Well, moving on, Drew. Mike Rasmussen, another guy's been around for quite some time here. Big, tall Mike Rasmussen. He was one of our first higher lottery guys that we got after the playoffs, where the playoff stretch was over. This was a guy that we acquired during that time. He was a top 10 draft pick, Drew, and it has not materialized. We've squeezed this rock for a long, long time, and we're finally getting big time NHL games and minutes from him, and we're hearing a lot of crickets.
Oh yeah, and talk about a tale of two cities, right? Again, 2 seasons ago, right, the 23-24 season, Michael Rasmussen really played well, really well. I don't have his points in front of me. They lost him for the last month of the season, and they missed him badly. He was fit. He is physical. He's one of the few guys that will drop him on the team. And again, I get it. This isn't the 80s and 90s anymore. The Bruce Brother days are done. But Mike Rasmussen's a guy that when he played like he did 2 seasons ago, very valuable. He's affordable. I think they re-upped with him for 3 years at $3 million a year. So a 3-year, $9 million contract. That's great. But only 21 points in 77 games last season. That's not even near good enough. In the absence of offense, where's the hard to play against big bodied forward I just described from 23-24? Didn't see it. Minus 12 on the season. He was only getting about 13 and a half minutes of ice time a game, coach. That's an indictment. That is an indictment on him. That means he wasn't effective on the penalty kill, and he also wasn't somebody out there a lot on 5-on-5. That's not good. So what is his role? Well, I guess it's going to be up to Michael Rasmussen. He's got to be harder to play against, and he's got to have a net front presence. He's reason number 1C why the Red Wings did not make the playoffs last year. That's an entire line of players there. Tarasenko, Compher, Rasmussen. Those 3 up front didn't get it done at all. And then it makes life a lot harder on the Dylan Larkins and Lucas Raymonds of the world. And guess what? It showed. It showed. No coincidence. We're quick to blame those guys, and they certainly had to shoulder a lot of it. But the gentleman we just articulated, and again, these aren't lost causes here. I fully expect Compher to be better. I expect Rasmussen to be better. I share your sentiment on Tarasenko. I don't know him well. You know what I mean? I know he's been around the league a long time. I get that. I know who he is, but he wasn't a Red Wing that long. So what are we getting out of him next season? I don't know. I'd like to think he's a pro and he's going to step it up, but we'll see.
Need him to because his time is coming to an end here as well, because it's that phase. But we need him to. Well, let's talk about the defense here, Drew. Getting right into it, we're going to talk with our top blue line player here. And this is a position that has long shown to be in need of improvement on this hockey club. We've got a pretty good one, and our best guy is a German player by the name of Moritz Seider, Drew. And you give him an A-, and that's the highest grade that we have given to any player here. So this is the Sports Peninsula Podcast, Detroit Red Wings MVP right here. Moritz Seider. Yeah. Let's talk about him, Drew.
And I mean, clearly the best defenseman on the team. He averaged just over 25 minutes a game last season. He's an absolute Iron Man. He's becoming a more effective checker and physical presence. Now, he was a good checker and physical guy right from the get-go, but he's more effective with it. He's adept at getting his body in the way he has like that sense. He's got that hockey sense where he feels that guy behind him. He can just turn his body and he subtly will interfere with a guy or subtly take a guy off the puck right against the boards. And he does a really nice job with that. He led the team's defenseman in scoring with 46 points. Now, with his skill set, you'd like to see more offense. And quite frankly, that's the A-. That's pretty solid offense. He quarterbacked that power play 1 unit. He did a really nice job with that. That was the ghost last year. Seider was yet another issue there, having to losing Gostisbehere on the power play and not having that spot backfilled. That hurt them pretty badly too. We'll discuss more of that why later. But again, he's too good. Now another reason he's named minus, too good to be a minus player. He's still -5. But when you're playing 25 minutes a game and you're a defenseman, you're going to be a minus player if you're on a team that's, I wouldn't say a losing team, but a team that's either sub 500 or out of the playoffs. So that's got to improve. He's a great shot blocker. He doesn't miss games. He hasn't missed a game in 4 seasons, 328 games. Moritz Seider is one of the cornerstones of this team, and there's no talk of trying to see what you could get for him on the trade market. He's here. This is our guy, Moritz Seider.
This is a captain type player.
Yeah.
This is a captain. He's never missed a game. He does the dirty work. Now -5. You know, that's not good.
No.
Again, is that all on Mo Seider? No. We've talked about some of the players already that might be a little bit more of an indictment to why maybe he's a -5 guy. Yeah, should we? During averaging 25 points, he's playing a lot of hockey. Almost half the game he's out there. Yeah. He's 4 minutes and 46 seconds away from being out there for half the game. That's pretty amazing. So that's he is a guy that's always out there. And yes, I mean, with a little more success, a little more fortified success on the defensive end too, with his partners, could this be a 50+ point defenseman? Sure. Oh, 100%. And he's a defensive-minded one. I'm a Mo Seider guy. I like him a lot. I do think you are 100%. I agree 100% with you, Drew, that this is probably of the 25 campaign, this is probably the most celebrated player, the player to celebrate the most. I think he brought it the most consistently at the best. I'm very, very pleased that he's part of our future and not a guy that needs to downshift and be the second defenseman. This can be the lead dog for sure.
Yeah.
And I like Moritz Seider a lot. On to the next defense. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Drew.
Just one quick point, Coach. We talked about guys that haven't stepped up at the forward spots, and they were bad. To this point, they've been bad signings by Steve Yzerman, and let's call it out. Those were poor signings, but Moritz Seider is a prime example of what Steve Yzerman does very well. Moritz Seider was kind of a slight reach based on draft boards. He went from about 15th to 6th overall. I think Yzerman knows what he's doing. He sees talent. So I just want to make sure we point that out. I get why people are angry. We are too. But there's reason that there's no better guy to have there than the captain as a GM. Yeah, here's our next guy, Coach.
That's a great point, Drew. One excellent point. Well, this is my wing. This is the guy that I'm most pumped about, and I'm really, really fired up about him. And I think he took great strides. I think we've talked about some doom and gloom with our forwards and what they brought to the table. The defense is not 100% that way. Mo Seider was a guy that did well. Simon Edvinsson did really, really well. He emerged. This was his big jump forward into the Red Wings lore. Big, long defenseman, another big, tall guy. Talk about Simon, Drew.
Yeah, he's the next guy, and he plays in all scenarios just like Seider. He's the PK2 guy. He can play on the power play, and he did have some time on the power play 2 unit, which wasn't a bad unit. But again, that secondary unit just couldn't get it done up front, so they didn't produce a lot. and yet the power play was still fourth in the league, which shows you how good that power play one unit was. I mean, that was just amazing. But just over 21 minutes a game, Edvinsson averaged, and this was his first full season. Coach, that's a lot on a young guy. Immediately filled the role well. His future's super bright. I'm going to tell you what. I mean, he led the team. He was a plus 12. No one was even close to that. He never panics. He even looks beat at times, but he's 6'6", and he's got huge reach. Bordering on like Soderblom, and he's so much more coordinated even and fluid. He uses his size well. He doesn't take foolish penalties. I'll tell you what. I'm not comparing him to Nick Lidstrom, but he has that type of demeanor where it's just never panics, always in position, just seems to always make the right decision. The offense, we'd like to see a little more, but I think that'll come. I'd rather him develop his defensive game and then try to take more, offensive chances or develop his shot better and become a better offensive defenseman. But right now, oh yeah, I agree with you. He's a guy to like.
Yeah, the future is bright. I think that's the best part of this card right here is the future is bright because with the goaltending that we've coming and when that season develops, their marriage between each other is going to be really, really big part of a winning formula, I do believe. And the best days are ahead here. Let's talk about another guy that's been around for a couple of years now. This has been Ben Chiarot. He's not brand new to the Detroit Red Wings. A well-seasoned player. Big guy, there's big defenseman, which is kind of the coin of the realm unless your name is Hughes, that in the league anymore these days. But Ben Chiarot, now we talked about two guys that would be part of our honor roll, guys that might be even National Honor Society candidates, and Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson. Ben Chiarot, not quite there, Drew. We're talking about a C- player given to the Sports Months podcast grades for the Red Wing defenseman. Talk about Ben Chiarot.
Well, C- really, it's because I think we saw a lot of inconsistencies. There were some games he was very good. There were some games he was not very good. But he did average 21 and a quarter minutes per game. He played in 81 games. He only missed one game. Not a lot of offense, 13 points, minus 14 on the season. That hurts. That's a really bad number on defense. Now, at the end of the day, and he also counted on to kill penalties, a 70% PK unit. Again, I've said it at nauseum, but it needs to be said. That's awful. I mean, that flirted with the league all-time league worst. So that is awful. That cannot persist. And Ben Chiarot's part of that. He provides that physical presence, 6'3", 224, and he can hit. But it always feels like he could do more to keep the star players of the world a little more safe. You would think that at the end of the day, like I said, how would I attack the Red Wings? Well, I'd rough them up. I get them off their game. I hit them. You'd like to think a guy like Ben Chiarot's going to police the situation a little bit better. And for some reason, it's not that he hasn't done it. We've seen him do it. Where he'll fight someone that took a cheap shot at Larkin. I had the Larkins of the world in here because it seems like Larkin gets always cheap shotted, always. And you'd like to see that kind of curtail a little bit because there might be a little more retribution back in the old days, and that still happens. I'm not the old guy and get off my lawn, yet. But, Ben Chiarot's got to be that guy. It's like, nah, we're not going to do that today, guys. Second most minutes on the team, and he's got to be a plus player. So, again, Ben Chiarot's a good defenseman. You know what? The one thing I will say, though, he's one of the best defensemen at bringing the puck in. He's able to carry the puck into the zone deep. But here he does this every time. He'll gain the zone. And coach, he's going to skate around the net, and he's going to skate around almost to the other point and then try to back it in. And it's like, Ben, you've done 90% of the work. Throw it out front. Stop on the dime and throw it out front, or take a shot. The hard part was getting it in the zone. So that's what it's like. Ben Chiarot gives you enough to make you think, wow, this is really good. And then there's a letdown. And that's just inconsistent. And that's hence the C-.
Yeah. And his role on this team is going to be probably filled by a different player. I think sooner rather than later. We've got some defensemen that are ready to start coming up here, some more youth.
Yeah.
That are going to probably be part of the long-term defenseman, combinations for the Red Wings for the future. So the time is now. The time is now. Yes, he can be part of this resurgence. I need to see it happen. We need to see it happen fast, or somebody else is going to be doing it. Drew, our next defenseman we're talking about is Albert Johansson. And, I'm going to let you take it away with Johansson because I know, it's a little bit of an up and down, narrative with him.
Yeah, he really didn't get a good look under Lalonde. Now, whose fault is that? Well, all of the above, I suppose. But it didn't seem like Lalonde did enough to get him to where ultimately McClellan got him to. So basically, the first half of the season is almost an incomplete, would almost be an F for Albert Johansson because he didn't play a whole lot. But he only ended up with 9 points in 61 games. He was minus 11. But McClellan gave him more playing time, and he seemed to improve over the season. Now, he's not big. He's only like 6 foot, 170 pounds. He moves the puck well. He showed ability to get good outlet passes, and he can join the rush. He will get a good opportunity to play immediately next season. So again, his grade really, I thought, was hindered perhaps by, quite frankly, a mismanagement of not only him, but Marco Kasper, Elmer Soderblom. All those guys developed more under McClellan than with Lalonde. So with Albert Johansson being a defenseman, he improved really a great deal. So that's why the C-.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we give him that opportunity because, we have some more defensemen coming up. We've got some more defensemen coming up through the pike, and they're chomping at the bit. They're starting to join Grand Rapids, and they're going to be here. Some of them are high caliber players.
Yeah,
international high caliber players already. So
Sand one.
Yeah, Sand and Pellica to name one. And can Albert Johansson be part of a 7-man defensive group for the future? He could. He's like you said, he's a little bit away from the big size, 6'3", 224, 6'6", 210, 6'4", 6'5", 220-pound guys that we've talked about just prior to this. He's a little bit different there, and you need guys that are different that way because he could be an offensive catalyst. Looking forward to seeing Albert Johansson's development in his next year with the Red Wings. Moving on to Justin Holl. This is a guy that we were even talking about at the beginning of the year as somebody, is he even going to be here? Are they going to cut him? Are they going to waive him? That did not happen. He was around, and he did very Justin Holl things for the Detroit Red Wings, which is not very much. Because that's kind of how Justin Holl really has been the last couple of years for the Detroit Red Wings, Drew.
Yeah, and and being honest, I agree with you. I gave him a D+ though, and the reason why, he really earned playing time early on due to injuries, Petrie's injury, and that was a big reason he was counted on to play. And then of course Johansson wasn't necessarily he wasn't endearing himself to Newsy, so he kept seeing the pine. Well, Justin Holl had to step in, and he was better this year than he was last year. So hence the D+. I'm not going to talk a lot about him. He's a -7 with 8 points. He's got something to prove. He's in a contract year, and it's a pretty substantial one, $3.43 million. So he's I would expect a better version of Justin Holl this year, just for that simple fact, and hopefully both can benefit from it. But yeah, I don't think he'll be back after this season.
No, I think like Tarasenko, he's going to be gone after this year. I think this is his 1 year to prove it, that he can still kind of do this at the NHL level, because he does come at a pretty high pay grade. He can help us both. He can help himself by helping the Detroit Red Wings get over that hump and pass the torch on to a younger player, because outside of Sherratt and Johansson, this is a guy that will be replaced by some of that youth.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next defenseman, Drew, Jeff Petrie. And I think, we were just, I had a friend just send me a video clip of a big play made by Chet Lemon in center field. And the pitcher in that game was Dan Petrie, the father of Jeff Petrie, a guy that we just were hearing talk. I was before we started recording when I was watching Jason Benetti and Dan Petrie do the Detroit Red Wings Texas Rangers game that we won 2-1 tonight with Tarek Skubal taking the mound. Jeff Petrie has carved himself out a phenomenal professional hockey career. My family went to a Cold War game back in the day, a Michigan State game, and Jeff Petrie's a proud Spartan. Talked about a lot of Wolverines. Now we're talking about a Spartan here. And he comes from the state of Michigan. But I think we're talking about a guy that's at the end of the road. I do think we're talking about a guy that's at the end of the road. He struggled this year. Talk about Jeff Petrie, Drew.
Yeah, he did. Obviously, the injury. Ultimately he revealed that it was an abdominal injury. So he likely, I don't know if it was sports hernia or something like that, which that's a tough one. So he missed almost 2 months of the season. He averaged just under 19 minutes a game when he was healthy. Not likely to be back in Detroit. You can't rule anything out because it doesn't appear that he's retiring based on his press conference. But now, Coach, you and I have talked, and I thought he was definitely going to retire. But he's talking like he wants to get another contract somewhere. I don't think he'll be in Detroit, because obviously you still got Justin Hall there, and at $3.4 million, he's going to be there. And now you can buy players out, and we'll talk about that shortly. But again, he missed 2 months. We didn't get the best version of Jeff Petrie. He's had a very, like you said, a very solid pro career. We just didn't get the best version of him in Detroit, unfortunately. But he did have 8 points in 44 games. He was a -2 on the season. Sadly, I agree with you. He struggled defensively, and sadly, he actually of the group after Sider and Edmondson, he was actually one of the better, at least more steady defensemen, and that's kind of scary. Hence the PK percentage too. But yeah, Jeff Petrie had a rough one. But no, hey, if he can play another season somewhere, hey, cool.
More power to him.
I like
the number 46, just like his dad did.
Yeah,
with the old English D. So it's been great having Jeff Petrie back here, but ultimately it didn't lead to the things that we wanted it to. And I think, we're looking at a parting of the ways probably, Drew, here. Like you said, you never know, but I think he'll be somewhere else for Jeff if he gets an opportunity at all, because it's probably at the end of the road. Mm-hmm. Erik Gustafsson is a guy that, again, I think some people could see him being a guy that was a sub 60% guy.
Yeah.
In fairness, swing and a miss.
Mm-hmm.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, this was a bad one.
Another. This one hurts, and I tell you what, you talk about Gustafsson, you talk about Comfer, you talk about Tarasenko. As free agent signings, they have done our captain, Steve Yzerman, dirty, because they've really tarnished his reputation. Erik Gustafsson's not one of my favorite guys, Drew. Is he one of yours?
No, unfortunately, he just never.
Sorry to put you on the spot there, but
well, no. I mean, I'm not. I'm Joe fan, right? We're Joe fans here, and these guys are pro athletes. We respect the shit out of that, at the end of the day. So nobody fails. But to your point, this is as close as you get. You can fail, obviously, but if you do something foolish on the ice or off the ice that it's get you suspended for something, whatever. You get what I'm saying. But Gustafsson just didn't look comfortable at all, Coach. He missed the last 22 games due to injury. I almost wondered whether that was, maybe you just sit, Gus. We're going to take it from here. He's got 1 year left at $2 million. I think he's a buyout candidate. If a guy like a Sandin Pellikka and maybe a William Wielander can play their way onto the roster, and then you sign somebody, which we'll talk about down the road here. But, Erik Gustafsson would be a guy would be a buyout candidate. McClellan said they missed him. I'll be honest, he struggled to quarterback the power play unit on the second unit. We didn't expect him to be as good as Gostisbehere on the offense, right? But we did expect an upgrade defensively. He was minus 19 on the season with 18 points. Gostisbehere, I believe, had 56 points last year and still was a minus 16, but 56 points. You knew what you were getting with him. Erik Gustafsson played poorly. He never could seem to settle the puck down. It always seemed to bounce off his stick. He never could get a clean pass off. He would fan on shots, and he made a lot of poor decisions defensively. I don't understand it. He's been a solid player, but he played really poorly. If like I said, if they can get a couple guys up or sign a couple veterans, I would say they need to part with him. I would rather have Justin Hull as my number 7. Hull didn't kill him defensively. Gustafsson did.
I think you just answered it, right? Justin Hull's, they can't really move him. This is the guy that you move on from.
Yeah.
And he kind of proved it. He just, I don't know what it is, but I mean, he just doesn't get it here. And he just didn't even look like he belongs on the ice. He looks just out of just uncalibrated. It's very hard to say. And he's an NHL caliber player. So who knows what that's all about, Drew?
That's a great.
I think we're going to go pretty quick here. I think this can go pretty quick here because we're not talking about really anyone that's part of the long-term future.
Yeah, you're right.
Here at the goaltender spot, our best one, and I wholeheartedly agree, was for the better part of the season, Cam Talbot.
Yeah, he was.
Go ahead, Drew.
No, he's entering the final year of his deal, so he's going to be back, and he certainly will be goaltender 1A. 90% save percentage, 9.93 goals against in 47 games. That's pedestrian. But there were times Cam Talbot was very, very good, and then he struggled right around the Four Nations and the trade deadline, hence the trade for Peter Mrazek. So they did add somebody. Will his role change on this coming season? Well, can Sebastian Cossa come up and wow them? He could. We'll see what happens. But I don't think, and Steve Yzerman flat out said he doesn't see that happening, that he would be in Detroit this coming season. But he never ruled out that he wouldn't be able to play his way onto the roster either. So we'll see. Average numbers, Talbot tapped the wings in games more often than not. Hence the C- grade, but he did struggle at times during the season. And I'm not sure if it was all him or the folks in front of him. Little of both. So the C-. Cam Talbot, I feel comfortable with him next season as long as they're better up front. Cam Talbot will be better.
Yeah. And like you said, I firmly believe we're passing this baton to Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine in the next couple of years. And those will be the two goaltenders here. I think those will be the two goaltenders here for the next real revival of the Detroit Red Wings. And one of them will emerge as probably the long-term solution at goal. And they both may be here for quite some time. But Cam Talbot really fits a role still. And he's going to lead the charge. Alex Lyon, Drew, 23-24 was we saw a guy that really almost got us to where we want to be. This year it wasn't the case. Talk about Alex Lyon.
Yeah, and real quick, and you're right, Coach, but he's actually an unrestricted free agent. I made an error on the graphic, but he's an unrestricted free agent. So Alex Lyon is can be signed by anybody. He didn't quite deliver, to your point, Coach, like he did last season. He started 30 games, but a save percentage below 90 is not good. A goals against 2.81 is below average, but and certainly a save percentage around 90. It's you're hit and miss. Again, he had some good moments, but again, he didn't quite measure up even to what he did last season. He had a hot streak last year, and he was one of the main reasons they were able to get into a spot where they almost made the playoffs. Alex Lyon played great. Not so much this past year. Will he be back? That depends on Sebastian Cossa. That's 100%. And if Sebastian Cossa is good enough to play on that team and play in 35 to 40 games, Alex Lyon won't be back. But again, that decision was going to be made later on, maybe. I'm not sure. We'll see. But carrying 3 goaltenders is likely, so he's still in the mix. If they already predetermined, Cossa is just going to go to GR initially, they may bring him back. Who knows? But will Costa be ready? We don't know, Coach. But overall, you'd almost, no offense to Alex Lyon, but you hope that Costa's ready because Mrazek and Talbot are under contract. But overall, a C- for Alex Lyon, much like Cam Talbot, hit and miss.
Yeah, he's heading towards the AHL. That's really the league he belongs in, long term.
Yep.
Pete Mrazek, the say, welcome back, buddy. This was a guy that was at one time very, very highly regarded as the Red Wing goaltender of the future. In a previous chapter of his career with the Wings. That did not happen. We moved on from Peter Mrazek, and he moved on from team to team to team to team to team. Wound up with the Chicago Blackhawks, and we made a move for him this past year in trade deadline as a guy to maybe get us over the hump. That ultimately did not happen. However, he did outplay Alex Lyon, Drew. Pete Mrazek's likely to be back. We know that's going to be the case. What do you see from Pete Mrazek next year, Drew?
Well, you know what you're going to get from him, and you said it. I mean, he's a good goalie. He's going to make that initial save. I feel real good about. He's kind of a rebound machine, and if he's able to redirect the rebounds away from out of harm's way, that's cool. But too often he doesn't, so that's always something to be concerned about. But he only started 5 games last season for the Wings before he got injured, so he's incomplete. He played pretty well, though, a 2.49 goals against, 90% save percentage again, okay. But they were 2-2 in those games that he played in. So, not bad. He's under contract next season, to your point. Will he share the duties with Talbot in a number 3? That's very likely. Peter Mrazek will be on the team, and he's a good goaltender. And if he's your rotational guy or your backup, I don't think you're feeling too bad about that.
No, and again, this is a stopgap. We're going to be going in a different direction very soon, long term at goaltender, and Pete Mrazek, would be great to see him be part of a playoff run here.
Yep. So we'll go. I know we're going way over, folks, but we got a lot to talk about. So we're going to cover the front office and coaches next, and this will be an interesting one, Coach.
Well, Steve Yzerman is our leader. He's our unequivocal leader of this organization. And, he is, to call him a fan favorite and a Red Wing great are understatements of epic proportions. Outside of Gordie Howe, I don't know if there's a more revered player, Nick Lidstrom being someone that could maybe make that challenge. But this is one of the 3 great Red Wings of all time. And he's a guy that has had some success as an executive as well. Was part of an executive for the last Red Wing championship. Was an assistant general manager at that time. Moved on and helped build what was really an empire in Tampa that won several cups. He never was there for those, but he helped build those and fortify those. He came back home, and Steve Yzerman has, not gotten us there yet, but it's, in his long-term formula for success, like a lot of fans wanted to dub or like to call the Yzer plan, is still a work in progress. We have seen some things happen that are definitely bright spots and things for the future. And we have seen some things we would refer to as a swing and a miss, and have not worked out. He's got his work cut out for him, Drew. I want you to go for as long as you'd like on Steve Yzerman, but ultimately in the end, is there a tug of war here between Steve Yzerman and Dylan Larkin?
No, I don't believe that's the case. It just is just my opinion too, having watched both of those press conferences and understanding how, as a fan, how these guys have been as pros in their respective positions, whether as players or in Yzerman's case, front office. So no, I don't think that's the case. However, one of my bullet points here is, where does Larkin stand with him? This is a big question. Larkin's got to be on board with what Steve Yzerman expects of him as the captain of this hockey club, as the highest paid player on this team. Dylan Larkin's a really good hockey player. Dylan Larkin could be a great hockey player if he would toughen up mentally, emotionally. Now he's tough mentally in terms he plays through pain. The guy's he's a good hockey player. And again, I'm Joe fan. I get it, but he it seems like it's if the mentality were different, it would make all the difference in the world, and we wouldn't even be discussing this right now. It would be like, let's get a couple complimentary pieces and let's go get this thing. But Dylan Larkin's got that kind of talent. So, but again, if it's not a good fit, then you're right. He's got his work cut out for him, because then he's gonna have to figure this out. I hope as a fan, Dylan Larkin makes the same kind of transition that his general manager did as a player when Scotty Bowman challenged him to not be that offensive guy and to start being more responsible defensively. And he bought in as a player, and there's 3 banners in the rafters at the LCA as a result of it, and technically 4 because he was part of that management group of that team. So this guy knows how to win, and he knows what he's asking of Dylan Larkin was certainly something that he expected of himself as a player. Now, I'm not saying Dylan Larkin, Steve Yzerman level offensively. No. But he's a very skilled hockey player. And for this era, he should be one of the elite players in this era, and he's not there. So something's got to push him to that point. That's what's everything hinges on that. Why the C-? Well, that's right there it. And also, ill-intended or not, Dylan Larkin broke a cardinal rule of, it seems like, the Ilitch family and the Red Wings as an organization is our dirty laundry stays behind closed doors now. They had enough after the Probert and Klima fiascos and things like that, Goose Loonies, all those good things. The Red Wings have been a very quiet, very professional organization. And I'm not saying Dylan Larkin was unprofessional, but he kind of opened up a can of worms with those comments in the press conference. That's not the Red Wing way, so to speak. And that's a big deal. Those signings, you rattled them off before I even had the list up here. Hull, Petrie, Gustafsson, Kopp, Tarasenko, Compher, all have underperformed, some badly. Gustafsson, Hull, Kopp offensively, not good at all, but he's drafted very well. Seider, Raymond, Casper, Edvinsson, Johansson are already with the big club. Kosa, Augustine, Sandin Pellikka, Danielson, Amadeus Lombardi, and then there's Dmitry Bachelnikov, the second round pick from a few years back. The pipeline's getting full, and hope we got to just start getting more of these guys. Oh, Carter Mazer, who we saw for one shift, right? He's the future. He needs to upgrade the roster now. To your point, Coach, if 2 more years of this, and even guys like us are going to say it's time to make a change. I don't want that. Number one, the guy's he's Mr. Red Wing to us. He's not Mr. Hockey. That's Mr. Gordie Howe. But this is our guy. Lidstrom's 1B, but he's 1A. He's the guy. Yzerman, as a player, but screw that. We're talking about a general manager. We're talking about a gold medal win in 2010 as the GM of Canada when he left Mike Green off the roster, who was leading the NHL in points scored. He kept Drew Doughty, a rookie. Gold. He built that Tampa roster, like you said. Yeah, he left the next year. Are we complaining about that? Some people are. I get it. There's some blemishes here. I'm sure Steve Yzerman might give himself an F. Knowing how that guy played the game and how he seems so determined to do what's right to get to a level where you're a champion. He's done that in every level of his career. Who would you rather have running your organization than a guy who's got a proven track record? And oh, by the way, loves this franchise and Ilitches love him. Most of the fans love him. I didn't see Gordie Howe play, Coach, but you know what? I know he's Mr. Hockey. I know he's the best of all time. That's his spot. I know there's a lot of fans that didn't see Steve Yzerman play. Man, Google it. Google it. There's a reason.
Entire career is on video.
Yeah, just amazing. It's amazing. So, but a bad, a substandard grade. Not applauding their effort or his success level last year. They weren't successful last year. they took a step backwards. It's unfortunate, but I know I rambled there, but Stevie's he's an important guy. He's gonna make or break this run, and I still think he'll make it.
That's the leader of the organization, and he said so in his press conference. This is a guy that I fully still trust. Yes, he's had a couple of errors here along the way, but he wants to stick with his plan. We didn't make moves because we believe in those players coming up. That's why we didn't do that. We weren't going to mortgage them to sneak in this year and get beat quick in the first round. That wasn't going to be what we're going to do. That wouldn't have been very smart to do either. Because we're not good enough to make the playoffs right now. That's why. These players that are holding contracts right now aren't good enough. And that's why we need those players to replace them ultimately. And that's going to happen. And he is going to be making moves. He is willing to spend money. He said he would. Large money. He is willing to do that. He is willing to make trades. And I think he'd really like to make some trades right now, if he possibly could. So this is the leader that I believe in, and I believe we will see move forward. Going to talk about, I think, our coach next, and that's Todd McClellan and his staff. Todd McClellan replaced Derek Lalone mid-year, fairly early on in the year, actually, as you outlined earlier, Drew. And definitely an improvement. Definitely an improvement after Todd McClellan took the bench and his staff took it from Derek Lalone, who was clearly a big part of the problem. And the mantra and mindset that Derek Lalone set here really has set us back. I think if there is one individual that truly is culpable and really did not help Steve Yzerman out at all either, it is Derek Lalone, who is no longer here. He was not the man for this job. And we're behind the eight ball because of it. Todd McClellan did some good things here. Ultimately, it did not get us into the playoffs. But Drew, how do you see Todd McClellan's fit here with the organization and moving forward?
Well, certainly, like I mentioned earlier, we Red Wings fans knew him from the Babcock staff. He was Mike Babcock's Barry Smith, right? He was that guy, and he was plucked off the squad to take his first head coaching gig. I believe that was in Anaheim at the time. He took that. I believe that was the job. I know he's coached at Edmonton and LA most recently. So I was happy with it. They were 26-18-4 after taking over. They were 13-17-4 under Newsy. So, and they had 2 7-game win streaks. So Todd McClellan came in. Now, again, and he even said this, and the players even said this. Of course, you're going to get that kind of kick in the butt. Wow, they just the coach got fired. We got to step up. It's unfortunate that happens. But that's. A lot of people feel like they should be able to do their jobs without any kind of supervision. Well, everyone needs it. We all need it. We all need a kick in the butt sometimes. And Todd McClellan delivered that. I think that's the big difference between Newsy and McClellan is, again, I didn't see much of Lalone inside. I certainly didn't see him inside the locker room. I didn't see a lot of practice, but what I did see of him during practices and stuff was just very passive, very, very calm, nice, good guy. I mean, but you've got to have some fire. I'm not talking fire and brimstone, but you got to have some passion and a little more amplification, so to speak, or even just a firmness that's going to send a message that, I'm not kidding. You're coach, you've been coaching football for 30 years, man. You know what I'm talking about. You've got to have that. And McClellan brought that right away. And he said, and it was all over the news, and I'll say it, he said, play fucking hockey.
Yeah.
Relax. It's like it almost was, and based on that and some of the earlier press conferences when he came in, it seemed like they were just overthinking the game and being so mechanical, and it slowed them. And hence it made them, it killed them offensively in the first month of the season. So, again, the coaching change, he gets a full training camp this season. The changes in the coaching staff, the video coach and the goaltender coach were both removed. He's moved on from that, but Alex Tanguay is still with the group, and there's a few others. So there's some positive. There's Trent Yawney, obviously that's his right hand guy. He's there. So the team finished with the number 4 power play in the league, which was outstanding. It's the only reason the team was in contention. That power play was lethal on power play 1, 20 over 27%. They got to improve the PK and the 5-on-5 play. Coach, they're anemic offensively in 5-on-5, and it just seems like, again, if you can keep out of the penalty box against the Red Wings, you're likely going to beat them on a given night. Now, very difficult to do. And that just shows you how impressive their power play is. Hence why we'd really like to see Patrick Kane back, because he's a big part of that. But a lot of things have to improve, and we could see a lot of change. We really could. If a lot of what I don't think Larkin's going to get traded. I'm just going to say that on record, but I'm not opposed to it as a fan, and I think the package we are put together that makes sense. I mean, no, you're not going to get Dylan Larkin in return, but you might get Dallas Drake and Kirk Maltby. I'd like that a lot. I'd like that a whole lot. So that, just to wrap it up, it was an underwhelming season. There were some good performances, some very solid performances, but ultimately way too many underachievers, Coach.
Yeah, and that's not where we thought we were going to go. And unfortunately, those, whatever you had the graphic up there, it was about 35 games that Derek Lalonde was the coach of the Red Wings this year.
Yeah, they were 13,
about 30 games or so. It was too much to overcome. And we really couldn't, we really couldn't quite fully pull from what really almost appeared like an anesthesia that we were in. I mean, it was a malaise. And like you said, I mean, too often times, I mean, we were talking about, you would think by the response of the players and the look of the players that they were talking about the loss of a family member or being part of some sort of catastrophic incident. They look depressed and just withdrawn and defeated. And Derek Lalonde news conferences. I mean, I know I was more tired after watching them. He was so long and just slow, and that just seemed like that was too much to overcome this year for this group. Like you said, the change is coming, no matter what. Is it in the form of a lot of player change? Maybe not, and maybe and like you said, we're 5 points. We're almost a playoff team. Yeah. So we're looking across that threshold, like our Detroit Pistons have, like our Detroit Tigers have, like our Detroit Lions have. We're looking for, because there once was a time where these guys were the ones, they were the only show in town, really substantively. In the 1990s, especially during their time in the 90s, the Lions were done by then, really, and we're starting to wind down and move away from the Barry Sanders era. And the Pistons were long since disassembled and had a little bit of a resurgence in the middle 90s, and that started to go away again, too. There was a heyday with Red Wing hockey where they were the top ticket in town. And may we get there again, Drew. May we get there again.
Amen to that, Coach. So beautiful job, Coach. Appreciate you moderating this one. Couldn't done this without you. But thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for I cannot talk anymore. I've been talking so long. Thank you for subscribing. Don't forget to take the like button. And hey, we appreciate your comments. Do you agree with our grades? Maybe, maybe not. But we'd like to hear about it and hear about it from all of you. And thank you for watching. And we'll talk to you soon. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast, and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one, Sports Peninsula Podcast.